what happened at the end of that game is inexcusable. All right, welcome in. Happy Black Friday. We are 3 games into week 13 already. Thanksgiving Day is in the books, and that's where we're going to start this week. Our first topic for this week concerns 2 of those 3 games, and really looking at one division, and that's the NFC North. The top 3 teams in that division now, the Vikings, the Packers, and the Lions, are a combined 29-6. Pretty remarkable. And when you look at it, really good in the coaching department, really good in the quarterbacking department. And all 3 of those teams are relatively young in those areas. The Lions with Jared Goff and Dan Campbell, the Vikings with Sam Darnold and Kevin O'Connell, and of course the Packers with Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love. It's really organizational strength I think we've seen from those 3 teams. And we'll start with the early window on Thanksgiving and the job the Lions did. Now, they looked, again, like the Detroit Lions over the first 2 quarters. They absolutely, positively were bludgeoning the Bears. And you looked at the yardage totals, the first down totals, the time of possession. In every single category, this thing wasn't close. And then you got to the second half, and it wasn't. And I'm going to tell you why I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. No one's going to be perfect through an NFL season. No one's going to do what the Lions did to the Jaguars a couple of weeks ago, week in and week out. You're going to hit your bumps. You're going to have your clunkers. And I think being able to survive it is a trait that all the great teams have. This was a weird second half for the Lions. Injury after injury. That's a defense that already has been playing without Aiden Hutchinson. They're way down the depth chart at corner in the second half of that game. Their defensive line is taking hit after hit. DJ Reader goes out for a little bit there. Zadarius Smith goes down for a little bit there. And the Bears are able to come back. And I think we saw a lot of good things from Caleb Williams in the second half of that game. I think the Bears showed us a little something. Keenan Allen, a real pro. He may not be what he used to be, but really showed up big in the second half of the game. The Bears showed heart. They showed some resolve. In the end, the Lions showed championship mettle, and they showed up on the last possession of the game. And we'll get to the Bears side of that here in a little bit, but last possession of that game, they had to end the game not once but twice. You could argue the pass interference call at the end of on the fourth down was not legitimate. I would argue it was ticky tack. I mean, if you want to go by the letter of the law, maybe you call that, but I did not see that as the sort of penalty that you're going to call in that situation on a prayer of a throw from Caleb Williams. Either way, the Lions had to get that stop. Then they had to get the stop at the end of the game where Zadarius Smith comes up huge. DJ Reader was huge in this game. I look at the Lions and they keep checking boxes, and this is a different box to check than they checked a couple weeks ago against the Jaguars and they checked last week against the Colts. To me, this was all right, things aren't going right, and this is bound to happen in the playoffs at some point. X, Y, and Z go wrong. You have a few players go down, and how are you going to respond? And I think we saw the proper response from the Lions. The Packers just look very complete right now. And I think one thing, if you look at where they were in the stretch run of last year and then into the playoffs, they were leaning a lot on Jordan Love and their passing game. And I think what we're seeing now from the Packers is a more complete team. Defensively, they played really well. And they've always had like a good core of star players on defense. They've got, your Rashawn Garys. This year they bring over Xavier McKinney, who might be a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, Jair Alexander. So they've got pieces on defense. But I think Jeff Hafley's done a really nice job bringing it together. You add to the offense with the run game, the physical presence that Josh Jacobs has brought to the run game and what he's able to do from a versatility standpoint. It just looks like a pretty complete Packers team. And again, this is Matt LaFleur doing things in the offseason that his team needed, going and getting Josh Jacobs, going and getting Jeff Hafley. They made some of the tough decisions to start to lean on younger players a little bit more on defense and phasing out Preston Smith a little bit. Obviously, he's now on the Steelers, and leaning a little bit more on a Lucas Van Ness. And this is a Packers team, again, that I think looks like maybe a more complete all-around team than the one they had last year that went in, won a playoff game in Dallas, and then went toe-to-toe with a really, really good Niners team. So, I see a complete Packers team. I see a Lions team that showed another gear on Thursday, and it's not that full throttle gear. It's the gear where you're stuck in the mud and you gotta pull yourself out of it. And then the Vikings are the Vikings. I think we've seen a lot of incredible things from the Vikings just from a program standpoint this year. In and they still have to play the Cardinals on Sunday, so we'll see how that goes. But in at two of the most critical spots in the field, quarterback and edge rusher, they lose maybe the two most important players their franchise has had over the last decade, and Kirk Cousins and Daniil Hunter. All due respect to Justin Jefferson, who's been around for half of that time, and they get younger. You could argue they've gotten more effective in some ways, and they've pulled through. And there was even a spot where they hit a rut there in the middle of the season where it didn't look like they were quite the same, and they've been able to pull out of that too. And big game for them on Sunday against the Cardinals. But overall, you look at that division, and it's going to be exciting down the stretch. And that starts this coming Thursday night with the Packers and the Lions. The Packers and Vikings play in Minnesota in Week 17, and the Vikings and Lions play in Detroit in Week 18. These teams have all played each other once. The Lions have swept the other two. They're 2-0 against the other two. The Vikings went into Lambeau and won, so they're 1-1. The Packers are 0-2 in this little scramble atop the NFC North, but it should be exciting the rest of the way. Okay, our second topic for today is getting to the other team in the NFC North, and that's the Chicago Bears and what we saw at the end of the game. And, it's really a shame because I think they showed heart, they showed resolve, they showed a lot of the things that Matt Eberflus has looked to build into his program over the last 3 years. The defense buckled down and was able to compartmentalize just getting punched in the mouth in the first half and played much better in the second half. Caleb Williams came alive. They just showed, an ability to pull themselves up off the turf and keep fighting. And so I like a lot of what they've seen. Thomas Brown's been a really, a revelation as the offensive coordinator over the last few weeks. Not that he's reinventing the wheel, but he's really impressed people in that building with his personality and how he's sort of made things a little bit easier on Caleb Williams and had a good idea of what his quarterback needs. So there's positive in there. That said, what happened at the end of that game is inexcusable. And it's inexcusable because in that situation, on that, you go into, a second down play there, you take the sack, and there's not another play called. There's not, there's not a plan B there. Or maybe there is a plan B there and your players aren't prepared to execute plan B either way. That's not a great look. And so Caleb Williams doesn't rush the team to the line quite fast enough. And it's tick, 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 tick. Now we're down to 10. Now we're down to 9. Now we're down to 8. He's fixing his armband. Now we're down to 7. And it goes from throw the ball inbounds, pick up 10 yards, use your last timeout, bring the field goal team out, force overtime to no. Now we're all of a sudden in a Hail Mary situation. And so all of that is bad. I think what was worse was after the game, I really like Matt Eberflus, but he has to fall on the sword there. He has to fall on the sword. And he stood up there and, at the podium post game. And, it sounded a little bit like he was blaming his players. Like he explained the situation. And it's sort of like when a coach says, well, we need to execute better. Players generally take those sorts of things as code for you're pointing the finger back at me. You're saying you had the plan. You gave me the plan. I didn't execute the plan. And that was sort of the message I took from the post-game press conference, which isn't a great message because you've got a rookie quarterback and it's on you to have him prepared for that situation. And if he's not prepared for that situation, then really that's on you. And so whether it happens later today or the end of the year, I think this is another, brick in the wall towards the Bears making a change. Not making the playoffs in 3 years, of course, is going to get most coaches fired. On top of that, you've got a rookie quarterback at a critical spot. You've got a team president, Kevin Warren, who didn't hire the head coach. This thing certainly feels like it's circling the drain now. We'll see if he gets a chance to to pull the team out from the hole it's knocked itself into with the losing streak that it's riding right now. But the end of that game, if this is it for Matt Eberflus, might be sort of seen as his last stand. Finally, our third topic, we'll look ahead to Sunday. Now, the game I'm probably most looking forward to is Bills-Niners. And one of the main reasons why is because I think this is like the proud old prize fighter. The Niners are the proud old prize fighter with all these guys who have played at the top of the league at their positions, who performed on the biggest stages. Some of these guys, a lot of them have played in multiple Super Bowls. Your Nick Bosa's, your Fred Warner's, your Debo Samuels. You look at all these guys, and it's like they still have everything in front of them. They're only a game back in the NFC West. And if they can get a little healthier and they can pull it together, there's a chance there's a real run in this team. Like now, can they go into Detroit and win? Can they go into Philadelphia and win? Those might be different questions, but I think the team does have a run in them. And there is a chance, maybe an outside chance, but a chance that because so many of these guys aren't out for the year, Brandon Ayuk being the one exception, that if you can kind of ride it out over the next couple of weeks, that you'd be in position to win the division and then hit the ground running in the playoffs. But if you lose to Buffalo, that's 7 losses. And now your margin for error is down to almost nothing. And so how do they show against Buffalo? I think it'd be a good way to get a look at where they're at. And then for Buffalo, this is a chance to really make a statement on a national stage and show, who they are as a team. They've been incredibly impressive. They're 9-2. They're coming off that massive win over Kansas City. They're coming off their bye. It's a Buffalo team that should be ascending as we head for the playoffs. They're relying on a lot more young players than they have the last couple of years, and young players in key spots, and guys who've been on the roster for a while are now more in leadership roles. Your Ed Olivers, your Greg Rousseau's, your Terrell Bernards. Like you've got, this infrastructure of players that like now it's their time. And so can they do it? Can they take a wounded animal out behind the barn, so to speak? And so it'll be interesting to see the way this one plays out. But I think it's a fascinating one because you have two teams sort of heading different directions. The Bills, who are kind of on the way up again, and then you get that proud old prize fighter. And we'll see how many swings he's got left in him. Appreciate you guys coming out. I hope everybody had a great, healthy, happy Thanksgiving with your families. Appreciate you guys coming out all year long. We've got a lot of excitement to go. Still 6 full weeks left in the NFL season. Again, you guys always can catch us here during the week on Tuesdays for the Breer Report mailbag on Wednesdays, and of course, this show, the Breer Report, on Fridays. Enjoy week 13, everybody. We will see you on Tuesday morning.